Have you ever looked at your alarm clock and wondered how many more years you will need it before you can finally turn it off for good? Not because you quit life, but because you no longer depend on a paycheck. Most people never ask that question honestly. Retirement feels like something far away, a blurry idea at 60 or 70. So they avoid thinking about it and keep repeating the same routine, hoping something magical will happen later. Today, I want to give you something better than hope. I want to give you a 5-year freedom countdown built on math, compounding, and discipline. No lottery tickets, no secrets, just a clear path you can actually follow. This roadmap is what I call the 2-3-5 Freedom Blueprint. 2 years to build your foundation, 3 years to accelerate, and by year 5, you reach the explosion, where your money starts working harder than you ever did. By the end of this video, you will understand how that curve works, why most people never see the best part of it, and what you must avoid in year 4 to actually reach the point where work becomes optional. Before we dive in, if you care about building real wealth with simple explanations and practical plans, tap like and subscribe to Dave's Dividend Lab. That tiny click helps this message reach more people who are stuck in the rat race. Let me be clear from the start. This is not a promise that everyone can stop working exactly in 5 years. What I am giving you is a framework that can radically compress your timeline if you respect the math. The big misunderstanding about compounding is simple. People think it is slow. They imagine it needs decades before anything happens. In reality, compounding can be brutally fast when you use it correctly and refuse to interrupt it at the worst moments. Most people never do that. They start, then stop. They invest for a few months, withdraw when life gets uncomfortable, wait for the perfect moment, listen to scary news, and then wonder why their accounts look flat year after year. So instead of drifting through the next decade, imagine designing the next 5 years around one goal. You want your money to reach a point where its growth outruns your effort. That is the entire purpose of the 2-3-5 Blueprint. Think of your journey as 3 stages: foundation, acceleration, explosion. Each stage has a job. Your job is not to predict the market. Your job is to survive each stage without quitting right before the good part. Stage 1 is the foundation, the first 2 years. I call this milestone 1, or the awakening. On the surface, it looks boring. Underneath, it decides everything. If you cannot get through these years, nothing big will ever happen. These are the invisible years. You invest, but your account looks stubbornly small. You sacrifice dinners out, impulse gadgets, and little luxuries, and your balance barely moves. It feels like the universe is ignoring your effort on purpose. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine you invest $200 every single month into a broad, diversified, compounding asset, earning around 9% a year on average. Nothing crazy or exotic, just a boring, reliable engine. At the end of year 1, you look at your account. Maybe you see a few $100s of profit. It feels tiny compared to your effort. You start wondering if this whole compounding thing is overhyped or only works for rich people. That doubt is the test. Compounding does not reward you at the beginning, it tests your patience. It wants to know if you will keep feeding it even when it looks unimpressive, or if you bail as soon as your emotions feel disappointed. By the end of year 2, something subtle starts happening. The small profits from year 1 begin earning profits of their own. Your contributions still matter, but now they are not alone. The growth curve quietly bends a little upward. This moment is your awakening. For the first time, you can clearly see that money is working while you sleep. It is small, but real. You move from hoping compounding works to knowing it works. That mental shift changes everything. Once you have seen your money make money, even in tiny amounts, you never see time the same way again. You stop asking how fast this will go and start asking what happens if you keep doing this for many years without interruption. Emotionally, these first 2 years are rough. You feel like you are always saying no. No to new toys, no to pointless upgrades, no to keeping up with people flashing their lifestyle. You look normal from the outside, but very different inside. What you are really doing is planting a forest. At first, it is just one seed, then a few seedlings. Above the ground, it looks like almost nothing. Beneath the surface, roots are spreading, intertwining, and preparing for explosive growth later. Why 2 years and not 1 or 5? Because compounding needs enough time for your first profits to start reinforcing themselves. but not so long that you lose motivation. 2 years is where discipline and visible reward meet in the middle. After 2 years of consistent investing, something clicks. Contributing is no longer a struggle of willpower. It becomes part of your identity. You see yourself as an investor, not just an employee. You feel wrong when you skip a month. You stop asking whether you can afford to invest. You start asking what you can trim so you can invest more. That is the power of milestone 1. The math is important, but the identity shift is what keeps you in the game. So milestone 1 is simple. 2 years to build the habit, to prove to yourself that compounding is real, and to survive the invisible years without quitting. Once you cross that line, you are ready for something much more exciting. Now we enter stage 2, the next 3 years. I call this milestone 2, the acceleration phase. This is where your snowball stops being a cute little ball and starts turning into something heavy, rolling down a steep hill. At this point, you are still contributing, but something new is happening. Your returns are growing faster than before. The gains from year 3 begin to compete with everything you earned during the first 2 years combined. That is not an illusion. Here is why. Every dollar of profit is now a tiny worker that never sleeps and never asks for a raise. If your portfolio earned $500 in profit earlier, those $500 now earn at the same rate as your original contributions. Most people stay stuck in an addition mindset. They think, I save $200, I get $200 richer. That is linear thinking. In acceleration, every $200 you invest recruits more workers. Over time, the workers earn more than the boss. That is multiplication. In year 3 or 4, you open your account and notice something strange. The increase in your balance over 12 months is bigger than all your deposits for that year. Your money is starting to outrun your effort, slowly but clearly. It feels like you discovered a secret shortcut, but the truth is less glamorous. This is just what compounding looks like when you finally give it enough time. It rewards endurance, not brilliance. You simply stayed in the game long enough. This is exactly where many people unintentionally sabotage themselves. They see a larger balance, maybe $10,000 or $15,000, get nervous, and decide to pull the plug. They cash out to buy something that disappears in a few years. Doing that is like turning off an airplane engine while it is still speeding down the runway. All the fuel you burned during the invisible years was meant to get you airborne. You quit right before the wheels leave the ground. If you stay invested, your wheel gathers speed. The snowball picks up more snow with every turn. By the end of year 4, the money your money earned in 1 year can be bigger than everything it earned in the first 2 combined. Numbers vary with returns, but the pattern is consistent. Gains accelerate, the curve gets steeper. This is why you should stop obsessing over how much you have invested and start watching how fast your money is growing compared with your deposits. Emotionally, this stage feels like quiet excitement. You still live simply, but you now understand the trade-offs. Every unnecessary purchase is not just a one-time cost. It is future growth you are killing before it ever gets the chance to exist. So you begin guarding your investments like they are alive, because in a sense they are. They are reproducing. They are hiring new dollars to help them grow. You are not fighting against money anymore. You and your money are finally on the same team. That is milestone 2, momentum. Once your system has momentum, your job shifts. You are no longer the person pushing the heavy wheel uphill. You are the person steering a machine that now wants to move forward on its own. At this stage, adjustments feel calm. You might refine your asset allocation, increase contributions when income rises, or reduce unnecessary risk. But you are not desperately chasing returns. You are protecting a working formula and letting it run. If you are still watching and this is making sense, this is a great moment to pause and like the video. Comment where you are starting from, month 1, year 2, or beyond. Subscribe to Dave's Dividend Lab to follow your entire 5-year countdown with us. Now let us talk about the part everyone dreams about. Stage 3, milestone 3, the explosion. This is the 5th year and beyond, when the curve that once looked almost flat suddenly starts curving upward like a rocket launch. In this phase, something wild happens. Your growth over a single 12-month period can equal or even exceed everything your portfolio earned in the previous several years combined. You have not changed strategies, only momentum has changed. Your monthly growth might now equal a week of your salary. Eventually, your annual growth can match or cover your full yearly expenses. That is the moment when retirement stops being a fantasy and becomes a choice you can actually make. This is where the idea of a freedom number becomes crucial. Forget the generic millionaire target for a second. Freedom is not about a specific net worth. It is about having enough invested so that your passive income quietly funds your lifestyle. For some people, a portfolio generating $40,000 a year is enough. For others, they might need $60,000 or $80,000. The number matters less than the principle. Once your investments cover your life, you have broken the chain. Think of this stage as reaching critical mass. In physics, critical mass is the point where a reaction becomes self-sustaining. In your finances, it is where your reinvested profits have enough weight to keep the compounding engine running almost automatically. The rocket analogy fits perfectly. The hardest part is liftoff. Most of the fuel is burned in the first minutes just to escape gravity. Those early sacrifices, the invisible years and the disciplined years, were your fuel. Now you are in orbit. In orbit, staying in motion requires much less effort than getting there. In the explosion stage, maintaining your system is easier than building it. Compounding becomes the background process of your life, quietly pushing your net worth higher. Here is what that feels like in daily life. You wake up without checking your bank balance before buying groceries. You are no longer anxious about every bill. Losing a job becomes an inconvenience, not an emergency, because your portfolio pays you anyway. Freedom is not about buying everything. It is about finally not needing everything. You no longer chase status purchases to feel successful. Your confidence comes from knowing that your time belongs to you, not to whoever signs your paycheck. Let me give you a quick example. Imagine someone named Alex starting with $250 a month, staying consistent for 5 years in a diversified portfolio. The exact numbers will vary, but by year 5, the balance is many times larger than year 1. More importantly, Alex is now a different person. The habit is permanent, the system is running, and the next 10 years can push that balance into 6-figure territory without heroics. The explosion is not instant wealth. It is unstoppable acceleration. Most people badly underestimate what 5 focused years can do. They overestimate what 1 year can bring and underestimate what 5 disciplined, boring, consistent years will build. The 2-3-5 Freedom Blueprint is designed exactly around that truth. Here is another secret almost nobody talks about. The advantage of starting earlier is usually more powerful than the advantage of starting bigger. Someone who begins 1 year after you, even contributing twice as much, can still end behind you long term. Why? Because your money had more time to reinforce itself. Those extra cycles of compounding are worth more than flashy contributions that arrive late. Consistency beats intensity. Time in the market beats timing the market, especially across 5 or 10 years. Of course, doubts will still show up. You will see scary headlines, market drops, political noise, and people predicting disasters every week. If you let those voices control you, you will be tempted to interrupt the very process that protects you. Volatility is not your enemy. For a long-term investor, volatility is just the price of admission. It is the noise surrounding the signal. As long as your time horizon is measured in years, not weeks, those fluctuations are simply part of the journey. Your real enemy is quitting the plan halfway through, selling at the bottom, pausing contributions when things look dark, or endlessly bouncing between strategies because you got bored. The math is powerful, but it cannot help someone who keeps starting over. So how do you actually start your own 5-year countdown? First, pick a realistic monthly amount you can commit to without destroying your basic life. It might be $50, it might be $500. The number matters less than the commitment. Second, choose a diversified compounding vehicle that fits your risk tolerance. For many people, that is a broad market index fund combined with some dividend-paying assets. The key is simplicity and discipline, not chasing the hot thing on social media. Third, automate everything. Set up automatic transfers right after payday so you never see the money sitting in your checking account. Automation protects you from your own moods and impulses. It makes discipline the default instead of the exception. Fourth, write down a specific date 5 years from today. That is your explosion horizon. You are not allowed to judge the success of the plan before that date. You can make adjustments, but you do not abandon the blueprint because of short-term feelings. Every contribution you make is a small vote for your future self. Every time you reinvest dividends instead of spending them, you cast another vote. Over hundreds of small votes, your future becomes almost unavoidable. That is how quiet wealth is built. If this message is resonating, binge more videos here on Dave's Dividend Lab. Knowledge compounds exactly like money. The more you learn now, the fewer costly mistakes you will make while your 5-year countdown is running. Let us quickly summarize the 235 Freedom Blueprint. 2 years to build the habit and prove compounding is real. 3 years to let momentum take over. By year 5, the explosion, where your money can finally overtake your effort. Ask yourself honestly, where do you want to be 5 years from today? Still waking up to the same alarm, complaining about the same job, or standing at a point where work is optional and your investments quietly pay for your life? Picture that future morning. No alarm buzzing. You make coffee slowly. You check your portfolio not with anxiety, but with curiosity. You plan your day around what matters to you, not around somebody else's schedule. That is what this blueprint is about. Remember, this is not a guarantee. Life happens, markets move, returns change. What you control is your behavior. Save consistently, invest wisely, diversify, and keep your expectations realistic. The blueprint works only when you give it time and honesty. Depending on where you live, taxes and regulations will affect your journey too. Learn how dividends and capital gains are taxed in your situation. Plan ahead, so the government does not quietly eat the freedom your portfolio is trying to build. If you got value from this video, tap like, subscribe to Dave's Dividend Lab, and drop a comment telling me your freedom number or what year of the 235 journey you are starting today. Your comment might inspire someone else to begin. Share this video with a friend who keeps saying they will start investing someday. Someday is not a date on the calendar. 5 years from now, you will either be glad you started today or wish you had. Help them choose the first option. You can even bookmark this video and come back once a year. Compare where you are to where you were. Celebrate progress instead of perfection. Every small step forward is evidence that your explosion is quietly building beneath the surface. This video is for educational purposes only and is not financial, investment, or legal advice. I am not your financial advisor. Always do your own research and speak with a qualified professional before making decisions with your money.